Hello, today I'm going to be giving you a full in-depth guide on everything you need to know about Crimzon Clover's Arcade Original and Arrange Original modes. I'm going to go over how the mechanics work, all the UI elements, and some basic and advanced tips and tricks to help you succeed and get your all clear in any of these modes. So let's dive in. So how do we play Crimzon Clover? Crimzon Clover is a 3-button game, the first button being the shot button. The shot is a rapid shot button that you can hold down to continuously fire a shot. The second button is the lock button. You can hold down the lock button to create a field in front of you that will target any enemies that are within the field. Releasing the lock button fires a projectile towards all the enemies that have been targeted. The third button is the break button. This button functions as the button you use to enter break mode, or it functions also as a bomb button depending on the circumstances that I'll go over later. So what are the ship types? There are 4 ship types in this game: Type 1, 2, 3, and Type Z. Type 1 features a very slow movement speed and medium width shot. It has very fast lock-on acquisition speed, and it has a high laser damage, so you can do quite a bit of damage with its lock-on shot. There's also a little, very small delay between the time you release the lock-on button and the time that the lasers reach the enemy, which factors into how you can time your lock-on shots, especially if you're playing score. The timing gets important. Type 2 has a medium movement speed, faster than Type 1. It has options that trail you, and you can lock those options in place if you hold a lock button. It has medium shot damage and a medium lock-on acquisition speed, medium damage, kind of in the middle of everything. There is also a slightly longer delay between the time you release the lock button and the missiles reaching the enemy. The next ship is Type 3. This is the fastest ship in the game. It has a very narrow shot, but it also has the highest damage. The lock-on acquisition speed is quite slow, and the damage is medium. There's also a really large delay between the time you release the lock-on button and the time that the lasers hit the enemy. The next ship type is Type Z. Type Z is the ship that you cannot choose in arrange mode. It's only available in arcade mode. This has an incredibly fast movement speed, a little slower than Type 3, so it's the second fastest ship in the game. However, it has a very wide shot. The shot covers the entire screen if you use a rapid shot while on the bottom. And it's second in damage only to Type 3, so it's not the strongest shot of the game, but that combined with how wide it is makes it the best shot. It has a very fast lock-on acquisition speed like Type 1, and it does even more damage than the Type 1 lasers. And there's also very little delay between the time that you release the lock-on button and the time that the lasers reach the enemy. So overall, Type Z is hands down the best ship in the game. So now that we went over the ship types and how to play the game, let's go over the UI elements. And as I go through each of these elements on the screen for Arcade Original, I'll discuss the mechanics and how those elements work with the gameplay. First and foremost, we have your score at the top. The green numbers represent billions and the red numbers represent trillion. Next up, we have the current star count here. As you do damage and you destroy enemies, you'll earn stars. Next to it is the stars required for the next life. This game features no secret extends. In order to earn extra lives, you have to earn stars. To earn stars, you have to score. So scoring is survival. There are 4 extents that you can reach based on your star count. It's 100,000, 250,000, 450,000, and 700,000. Generally, if you're playing for survival, you'll be hitting the 250, 450k extend range. If you're really going for score, that's when you'll see these star counts up into the 700,000s and more, so you'll be hitting that extend. Below those star counts is the break rate. So this is a multiplier that is applied to all the enemies and destructible parts that you destroy. It increases as you damage and destroy enemies, and it doubles temporarily when you enter break mode. Then when you enter double break mode, it doubles a second time, which effectively quadruples your break rate from the normal mode. It decreases gradually when you fight mid-bosses and bosses, and then when you lose a life, the amount is also decreased, with the amount being decreased being higher the higher your break rate is. So the more break rate you have, the more that goes away when you get hit. At the beginning of each stage, you'll see a little pop-up right under the star count. It says rate up speed with a little, like, a few triangles depending on the stage. This is a factor that's applied to the speed at which break rate increases. The amount of that factor, I'm not really sure, but generally the more triangles you see next to that rate up speed icon, then the faster the break rate will increase. The developers put this in so that stage 5 wouldn't be the sole purpose of the game in terms of scoring. Next up is a text indicator saying whether or not your bomb is ready. This is above the break gauge. And speaking of, the break gauge is one of the main components of this mode, of this game really, and it fills up with energy as you damage and destroy enemies. Once the energy fills up the gauge, break mode can be activated. Right below the break gauge is the sub gauge. The sub gauge fills up slower than the break gauge as you damage and destroy enemies. However, it fills up fairly quickly when you destroy enemies with the lock-on shot. And when you're in break mode, filling the sub gauge allows you to activate double break mode. In the middle of the break gauge, you'll see a little ticker, and this is called the bomb line. So this bomb line indicates how much energy is required to bomb. Every time you bomb, this ticker increases and goes up the break gauge. It does decrease over time slightly as you gain stars. It's very, very slight. Next is the green number that you'll see whenever you execute a lock-on shot. This is the active multiplier that's created whenever you destroy those enemies with a lock-on shot. Greater lock-on shots generate a higher multiplier. The max multiplier starts at 9.6. This goes up to 11.2 in break mode, and then when you hit double break mode, it goes up to 12.8. Under that multiplier is the multiplier timer. The timer is created when a multiplier becomes active, and the numbers that you see there are displayed in frames. The max timer is 999 frames, or about 16.65 seconds. This timer increases as enemies are destroyed, and prolonging this timer with the high active multiplier is the key to both survival and score. So survival and score are equivalent. You gotta score to survive. So during break and double break modes, you'll see a render of your ship that shows you the percentage of time left in your break or double break mode. I personally don't look at this much, but whenever you're watching a replay, it's a nice little thing to see, a nice little visual to have. Next up is number of extends remaining. Note that the number of lives means that you have the number of ships shown plus 1. Next up is your ship's hitbox. It's very visible, which is one thing I love about this game, where it clearly shows you your ship's hitbox. It's very small, so you can easily graze bullets if you need to and position yourself very easily. Next, this is a text indicator below your ship that says whether or not your bomb is ready or your break is ready. This is another really good thing I like about this game, where it includes a lot of information that is useful right around your ship so that you don't have to go hunting around the UI if you know where to look. Down below is the lock-on meter. This shows how many locks you've acquired. The game will beep when you're acquiring locks, and it will make a distinct sound when you reach the max lock-on. Note that the lock-on ticks that are grayed out at the end are only available during break and double break mode. Next up is a gadget that shows the score that's obtained through each stage in the run. And then here is another gadget that shows the button it puts. And then finally we have a gadget that shows the trophies for each difficulty and mode. So now that we went over Arcade Original, let's go over the Arrange Original UI elements and mechanics. It's mostly the same as Arcade Original, with a few key additions that we'll go over right now. The first addition is the star medallion count. So this is to the left of the star medal count. In Arrange Original, you have larger enemies dropping larger star medallions that give you a lot more points. You get more medallions when destroying enemies with the full lock-on shot, and those medallions are counted there. Next to the count there is how many large medallions you need for an extra life. In Arrange Original, you have the potential to fill up the life bar that you see there completely, because you can not only get extends through the large medallions, but you can also continue to get extends through the star items like you do in Arcade Original. Next up is the rank meter. So the rank meter is right below the break rate. It's a meter that fills up as you upgrade your ship, destroy enemies, collect the large star medallions. Once that meter fills up, you've reached high rank. So what is high rank? High rank is kind of like, I call it arcade light. You get arcade style patterns, arcade style bullet speed, It's still slightly easier than arcade mode, and especially since if you get hit, then your rank drops back down. Achieving high rank grants you access to the 25.6 multiplier, which will greatly increase your score. So next up is the main feature of the arrange mode, which is the upgrade bar. This is a Gradius style upgrade bar. It fills up when you deal damage, destroy enemies, and pick up stars and medallions. Whenever you press a break button, it allows you to choose the upgrade of your choice, and then whenever you do that, the meter will restart at the beginning so that you can choose the next upgrade. The meter will also restart after filling up all the way, so in case you miss an upgrade, you'll have a chance to select the one that you want. An audio cue tells you when the meter advances to the next upgrade. There are a number of upgrades. In general, they're the same per ship, but they vary in terms of the flavor. So the first up is the speed upgrade. This is always first on the upgrade bar. It increases the speed of your ship. When it's maxed, you can then select that upgrade again to reset the speed to the lowest speed. The next type of upgrade is the option plus. So depending on the ship, you'll gain a number of options which effectively increases your firepower. Maxing this out gives you the ability to toggle an alternative option formation. This will be differs depending on the ship. For type 1, the alternative formation gives you homing options, so they track enemies across the screen, they fly across the screen, and essentially point blank them every time you press the rapid shot button. The type 2 alternative formation puts the options into a trailing V formation, and the options rotate 360 degrees in that V formation, and they fire upon the closest enemy. Holding the lock button locks them in that V formation. For type 3, the alternative formation puts the options in a formation where they freely rotate around the ship and fire on enemies. You can also hold the lock button to sort of bring them together. It doesn't hold them in place, but it clusters them together, so even though they still rotate around, they can still concentrate on an enemy. The next type of upgrade is the Lock Plus upgrade. This increases the number of possible lock-on acquisitions, which you need to increase your possible multiplier. Maxing this allows you to acquire a 12.8 multiplier in low rank and a 25.6 multiplier in high rank. In Arrange Original, you don't need to be in break mode to reach the max multipliers. And then here, when you max this out, you gain the ability to toggle a frontal lock-on option, which whenever you do this, you create a reticle in front of your ship, and the reticle allows you to very quickly acquire a full lock-on to anything inside it. One neat thing that you can do that could be useful is if you're on the bottom of the screen, you can move the reticle closer to your ship by holding down while at the bottom, and whenever you do that, you'll see the reticle come a little bit closer. So next on the upgrade bar is break mode. So pressing this, it allows you to enter break mode. Whenever you reach this point on the upgrade bar, the game will give you an audio and visual cue. Whenever you do enter break mode, the upgrade bar changes, and it allows you to fill up again to select double break mode if you reach all the way to the end of the upgrade bar. If you do enter double break mode, the double break mode option on the bar then switches to extend break. Extend break mode allows you to extend your double break mode for as long as you can. So as long as you are able to reach that extend break option on the upgrade bar, then you can continue to extend your double break, which is quite useful. The last upgrade is the shield. The shield allows you to take a hit before losing a life, which is very, very useful. Acquiring a shield is usually the upgrade that sends you into high rank, so be wary of that. Taking a hit when you have a shield activates your bomb. So in Arrange Original, there is no bomb button per se. You have to acquire a shield and then get hit for you to use the bomb. You can acquire a shield as often as you want. So if you get hit, you lose your shield, just advance your upgrade bar again, acquire the shield, and you just have continuous access to your shields. You can also view this upgrade bar in front of your ship. While the bar seen in front of your ship doesn't have the names of the upgrades, if you memorize a few of them, then you can see where the bar is there, and you don't have to look down at the upgrade bar. You can kind of gauge where the bar is in front of your ship and choose your upgrades that way. The next thing, which appears at the very, very beginning of your run, is the option to pick semi-auto or a manual upgrade path. Both have pluses and minuses, and I'll tell you which one I pick at the end. So the first is semi-auto. Semi-auto automatically chooses an upgrade in a specific order for you. You can manually toggle the alternative option and lock on upgrades once you fully upgrade it, but it will automatically give you all the upgrades before that in the certain order, which means that depending on the ship that you pick, usually the shield is upgraded last, which can be a negative if you lose a life and you need another shield. However, if you've optimized your route, you don't die too often, and you kind of forget and you let the upgrade meter run past an upgrade that you want, and oh man, I have to wait for it to come back. Semi-auto is good for you because it takes care of the upgrades for you, so you can focus more on your routing and firing it on the screen without having to worry about the upgrade bar. On the other hand, manual allows you to choose any upgrade as you see fit. It gives you the most control of your upgrade path. You have to be careful that you don't overshoot an upgrade. So if you collect a huge pile of large medallions, which makes your upgrade bar jump, it's possible, and it's happened to me many times, especially when I'm trying to activate break mode, that I pick up a bunch of medallions and then, oh my gosh, the bar is past break mode, so I have to wait and I miss it, my opportunity, I mess up my routing. So that's one thing that is a negative about the manual upgrade path. I don't think it's that big of a deal, so I always pick manual. The reason being that is if I die in a crucial portion of the game, I want to be able to pick up a shield again. If I'm in semi-auto, the game is going to try to upgrade my ship before I pick up my shield, which in some cases could hurt me in the end. So, but it's ultimately up to you. Both options are very good, and I've seen replays of high scoring replays of players who use both options. So each is viable. So I've talked a lot about going into break mode and going into double break mode. What exactly happens when you press the break button to go into these modes? Well, I like to break it down into 4 distinct phases. The first one being right when you press the break button, what happens there. The second phase being the activation period. This is a period between the time you press the button and the time that the break mode actually becomes active. There's third phase being when the break mode is actually active and what happens there. And then there's a fourth phase that I like to break down where the break mode deactivates, and I'll go over exactly what happens there and how you can take advantage of that too. The very first thing that happens when you enter break mode is, of course, when you press the break button. When this happens, your ship becomes invulnerable. You'll see a shield appear around your ship, and then all the bullets and lasers that are currently on screen are converted into star items. Then you have the activation period. This period is the period between pressing the break button and the break mode actually activating. It's around 110 frames, plus or minus a few. And during this period, your ship remains invulnerable, so you can fly around wherever you want on the screen. You won't collide with any enemies that are airborne. Additionally, the game slows down, so your ship, all the enemies, and all the bullets move slower. However, your lock-on acquisition speed does not slow down. So during this period, you can still lock on to enemies normally, which allows you a full lock-on shot during this period. You can sneak one in and get a full lock-on to deal more damage or to build your multiplier. Every enemy bullet and laser fired is immediately canceled into a star item during this period. So anything that is fired subsequently gets canceled to star items, and this is very important because if you have an active multiplier, the timer will then increase by 1 for each bullet canceled, and if you cancel a laser, the timer dramatically increases. When you're in arcade mode, your max multiplier has not increased yet while your break mode is in this activation period. So you still have the 9.6 multiplier. Don't activate break mode, and while it's activating, think you can achieve your 11.2 multiplier. You cannot do that yet. Also, you'll notice that when it's activating, the energy from your sub gauge is transferred to your main break gauge. However, do note that even if your sub gauge is full, it only gives you about 95% of your main gauge, so it's not a one-to-one transfer. If you want to have your double break mode immediately available, you need to deal a little bit of damage to an enemy so that your gauge can fill up to the max. In arrange mode, the progress on your upgrade meter is set to 0, and during this activation period, you'll see that the upgrade meter does not progress at all, so it stays put. So if you pick up any medallions, if you do any damage, it's not going to advance your upgrade meter. So if you want to minimize the time it takes to enter double break mode in Arrange Original, you might want to not fire upon enemies or destroy large enemies and waste the medallions that you pick up. So after this activation period, your break mode is active. So the game speed returns to normal. Your ship remains vulnerable for about 45 frames or so, 40 to 45 frames. Your ship moves a lot faster. This next point is very important. So aerial enemy rank increases. What do I mean by this? Aerial enemies, meaning that any enemy that is in the air, they move faster, their bullets travel faster, and their bullets are denser when your break mode is active. However, to counteract that, your ship's main shot, of course, and is a lot more powerful. Your lock-on shot's more powerful. You can lock onto targets faster, so you remain stronger than those enemies, but do note that they are also stronger and they are more aggressive. While you're in break mode and it's active, damaging enemies gives you star items that you'll see streaming towards your ship. The number of stars increases when you're point blanking them. Here also you'll see that the break rate is doubled and the break rate increases faster. In arcade mode, your main shot's a little wider and you can lock on to more enemies. Like I've mentioned before, you gain access now to the 11.2 times multiplier, and then if you need to, you can use a bomb to exit break mode by pressing the break button again before the break gauge fills up. In arrange mode, while the break mode is active, the upgrade bar changes to show only selections for your option, your lock-on, and the double break mode. You lose the ability to upgrade your speed, so when your break mode is active, you cannot modify your speed, and you also cannot acquire your shield. So if you don't have a shield and you go into break mode and you need a shield, then you're going to have to wait until the break mode is over. Here the upgrade meter does not reset to the beginning if it fills up, so it stays full so that if you want to time your double break, you can do so as long as your break mode is active. Now, if you do activate your double break mode, I consider this still your break active phase of your break mode. So if you activate double break mode, the same things occur with double break when you press the break button, and it has the same properties of its activation period. After your double break is active, your ship still remains invulnerable for the same amount. However, an important note here is that the aerial enemy rank increases further, so they become more aggressive, they move faster, the bullets become a little bit faster and denser during double break mode. However, your ship's main shot and lock-on are even more powerful, so being in double break mode, you reach your ship's maximum power. The shot color turns green regardless of your ship type so that you know that you're in double break mode. Damaging enemies gives you a lot more star items than in single break or normal break mode. Here your break rate is again doubled, which effectively quadruples your break rate. Your break rate increases even faster, so if you're playing for score or if you need to get stars, double break mode is where you need to be. In arcade difficulty, you'll see that 2 additional options appear next to your ship, which makes your shot even wider, and you can lock on to more enemies, which raises your maximum multiplier to 12.8. However, another important note here is when you go into double break mode in arcade difficulty, you lose the ability to bomb. Given how powerful you are, and especially if you're playing Type Z, I consider double break mode as a prolonged screen clear where you can, as long as you don't become careless and fly into an enemy and you're generally aware of any stray bullets that are flying around you, you can kind of hang out and just wipe out the entire screen for the entire duration. In Arrange Original, while you're in double break, the upgrade bar changes to show extend break at the end. So what is extend break? It allows you to extend your double break. When you activate your extend break, all the bullets and lasers on screen are again converted into star items. So you can see the pattern here of why break mode is so important, of how many bullet and laser cancels you can get. Additional time is added to your double break mode. Your ship is invulnerable for about a second, and then the great thing about extend break is that you can repeatedly extend this as long as you can. As long as your break mode doesn't run out and your upgrade meter fills up all the way, you can keep extending your double break, and every time you do so, you cancel bullets on screen, you add time to your break mode, and you gain additional invulnerability. So now after all that, you've dominated the screen, you've exhausted your break mode, your double break, and now it deactivates. Well, the fun doesn't end there. When your break mode or double break mode deactivates, all the bullets and lasers that are currently on screen are again canceled into star items. Your ship also becomes invulnerable for about 50 frames, so a little less than a second. And then your break rate returns to normal, so if you're exiting break mode, it gets cut in half. If you're exiting double break mode, it gets cut into a quarter. Your aerial enemy rank returns to normal, so the enemies return to their normal aggression. In arcade difficulty, deactivating break mode, so not double break, if you leave break mode, you remain with energy proportionate to the amount of energy that remains in your gauge. I generally think of it as like a 1-to-2 ratio. So if you have a full break gauge and you don't activate double break mode and your break mode ends, you end up with about half of your break gauge. Whenever double break mode deactivates, it resets your energy in the break gauge to 0. So you start from scratch, you have to build it up all the way again. One thing that is important to note here is that any targeted locks will remain that way until you release the lock button. So if you have a full lock in double break mode that would grant you a 12-point multiplier, and your double break mode ends, you can hold on to the lock button. Those locks will not disappear, so that the next enemy that you destroy with that lock on will give you that max multiplier. In Arrange Original, when your break or double break deactivates, it resets your upgrade meter progress to the beginning of the bar, and then you get the ability to select your speed and shield upgrades. So your upgrade bar returns to normal. So that was break and double break mode. So now I'm going to go over rank in Arcade Original. So is there rank in Arcade Original? Well, most will say that there isn't any rank, but any rank is determined by the number of stars that you have on screen, or the number of stars that you've collected. The rank increases gradually, so you don't really notice the rank increase as you go up in star count. You really only start to notice the rank when you hit about 600k stars, 700k, when you get that last star extend, and especially it's most noticeable in the last stage and with the TLB. The one exception to this is when you activate break mode, because the aerial rank increases, and so when you have a high star count and you activate break mode, then you will see a temporary increase in enemy aggression. Rank in Arrange Original is also affected by the star count, and then you have the rank meter. So when you're in low rank, I call this Arrange rank. The enemies and bullets travel slower. It's the default Arrange difficulty of the bullet speed and the density and the patterns. When you hit high rank, I call this Arcade Light rank. So this is achieved normally when your ship is fully upgraded. The bullet patterns resemble those seen in arcade difficulty. It's not exactly as difficult as arcade. That's why I call it Arcade Light. And whenever you get hit, this rank resets to low. The next thing I want to go over is the Arcade Original item wheel. This item wheel appears after you defeat a mid-boss or a regular boss. It's a set of 3 items, sometimes 4, that appears, and it gives you a bonus depending on what you pick up. So the first one that I'll talk about is the energy upgrade. This is the green circle with an E in the middle. This fills about 75% of your break gauge, no matter what. The next one is the star item. This awards you stars based on the stage. So the later stages award you more stars. As an example, stage 1 gives you 10,000 stars. By the end of stage 5, you can get 50,000 with that upgrade. The other item that is the recovery item. This resets your bomb line by an amount based on the stage you're in. So the earlier stages reset your bomb line by a lesser amount. Starting around stage 4, the recovery item will completely reset your bomb line. So if your bomb line is filled to the max, you've bombed your way through the stage because you needed to survive, picking up the recovery item will completely reset your bomb line to allow you access to all of your bombs again. The fourth item that appears with special conditions is the 1-up item. In Arcade Original, the only time you can get a 1-up item is if you defeat a mid-boss while you're on your last life. Do note that in Arrange mode there is no item wheel, so nothing pops out in Arrange mode when you defeat mid-bosses and bosses. You're just stuck with your upgrade bar. Next up, I'm going to be going over some basic to advanced tips that'll help you excel in Crimzon Clover. All of these tips apply to arcade mode, and then at the end I'm going to go over some Arrange mode exclusive tips that I found helpful while I've been playing. So the first one that I want to go over, and I think is the most important and is foundational to the rest of the tips I'm going to talk about, is being able to use the audio cues to your advantage. Crimzon Clover is really good in that it has clear, distinct audio cues that allow you to take advantage of what you need to do of what is happening in the game, so that you can reduce the time you spend looking at all the UI elements across the screen and focus more on the bullets that you have to dodge, and focus more on your ship. Now, of course, I'm not expecting you to memorize every audio cue that you hear in the game and to know what to do, but there are a few that you should know and be familiar with so that it makes your life easier while you're playing the game. The first one, the most important one, is the sound that occurs when you are able to enter break mode and double break. Your break mode and double break mode is ready. It gives you an audio and visual cue that you can activate it. I think it's very helpful so that you don't have to look at the break gauge. The next audio cue that you should know and memorize is the sound when you acquire a full lock-on, and here it is. This is really helpful. Looking down at the screen is even worse than looking up. At least if you're looking up at the break gauge, you're kind of looking sort of in the direction of bullets coming your way. If you're looking down, that's the opposite direction of where the bullets are being aimed at you, so that's very makes it a lot difficult. Related to that is the audio cue with each lock-on beep. So the ship will beep whenever you are acquiring your full lock-on, and this is what the lock-on you'll hear while you're playing, but I'll play a sample of the lock-on beep. And in a range, a useful audio cue to know is the sound when you enter high rank. It's important to know when this happens because then you can expect the enemies to become more aggressive and the patterns to be denser. So those are the audio cues. The next tip involves methods of filling the break gauge faster. The first being that point blanking enemies increases the energy you gain. Another way to fill the break gauge faster is having a high multiplier. So the higher the multiplier you have, the more energy that is gained from dealing damage and destroying enemies. On a related note, the sub gauge fills the fastest when you destroy a lot of small enemies with a lock-on shot. So if all those popcorn enemies that are appearing, especially the ones that appear in stage 3, if you destroy them with a lock-on shot, your sub gauge fills very quickly. And if your sub gauge is already full when you activate break mode, then your double break mode will be available soon after. There are additional benefits of having a high multiplier aside from filling your break gauge faster. You earn more stars, which you need stars to acquire more lives, and you earn more break rate, which increases your score. The next tip is used to maximize your multiplier timer, and this is what I call upgrading your multiplier. This is a fairly advanced technique, but once you get it down, it is very consistent and it allows you to unlock a lot of score, a lot of multiplier timer, and a lot of break mode activations. So what do I mean by upgrading your multiplier? Well, when you apply a fresh multiplier, meaning that you don't have one, you lock onto an enemy, you destroy it, and a multiplier appears on the screen, you are given 135 frames of timer, plus 3 frames for every enemy that you destroy. As you go destroying more enemies and you do more lock-on shots, if you happen to do a lock-on shot that would have awarded a lower multiplier, you are given 3 frames of timer per enemy destroyed. Now do note that your multiplier never lowers when this happens. Your multiplier stays the same. When the lock-on shot gives the same multiplier that you currently have, then you're given 6 frames of timer per enemy destroyed. When you upgrade a multiplier, meaning that your lock-on shot gives you a greater multiplier, you're given 9 frames of timer per enemy destroyed. Now I know that 3 additional frames per enemy destroyed doesn't seem like much, but when you multiply that by the amount of enemies that you blow up in this game, it adds up a lot. You can keep upgrading your multiplier until you reach the max to dramatically increase your timer. And you can use the audio cue from locking onto enemies, so the lock-on beep, to then execute partial lock-on shots. So what I do is I'll hold the lock button, I'll wait for 1 beep, release it. Then I'll hold the lock button and I'll listen for 2 beeps, release it again. Then I'll do the same with 3 beeps, and then I'll execute a full lock-on. And then what I'll normally do in this sequence is then after I get a full lock-on, I'll activate break mode, cancel the bullets on screen, and then that process alone will get you almost, if not the maximum multiplier timer, then you'll get very, very, very close. At least 700 and above. The next few tips are related specifically to Arrange Original mode. So the first involves what I call avoiding the shield trap. So having a shield is very advantageous to your survivability in Arrange Original. However, losing a life in Arrange Original partially downgrades your ship. This reduces your attack power, which reduces your survivability. Now your instinct might be, okay, I lost a life, I'm gonna go back in there, I'm just gonna upgrade my bar, get the shield again so that I can survive longer, and then I'll upgrade the rest of my ship and grow more powerful. Well, if you opt to build your upgrade meter to get the shield, you prolong the amount of time you're weakened, which in certain situations can lead to chain deaths. As you acquire shield, you immediately get hit, you lose it, and then you're already in a sticky situation, so you might get hit again, you lose another life, and you keep getting downgraded and because you keep trying to get the shield. So sometimes it's better instead to activate break mode to increase your firepower slightly. Select your ship upgrades while you're in that enhanced state, and then whenever break mode ends, you're already a lot more powerful, so you're going to survive longer, and then you can select the shield because you're less likely to lose a life while you're waiting for the shield upgrade. So that's something that I like to do, especially if I'm in late stage 4 or the second half of stage 5. Those are two places where if you lose a life, it's a lot better to go into break mode for the extra firepower and then get the shield later. The next tip involves having the frontal lock-on. So a frontal lock-on plus a fully upgraded ship allows you to destroy bosses very, very quickly. As I noted before, the target acquisition speed of the frontal lock-on is incredibly fast for every ship type, which allows you to execute full lock-on shots quickly, and you can just melt bosses and destroy health bars and not even worry about having to dodge certain patterns because you blow them up so fast. Alright, so that does it with the tips and tricks. Now I'm going to show you a demonstration of Arcade Original Stage 5 all the way up to the end of the mid-boss. That I feel brings all of these or most of these tips together. I think Stage 5 is a really well designed stage in that if you don't know the mechanics or if you don't take advantage of the mechanics in the game, then it will quickly overwhelm you. So I want to show you a fairly optimized, not perfect, run of Stage 5 up through the end of the mid-boss. It's a scoring focused run, so I'm going to show you how I optimized or how I tried to optimize this stage for score and how I take advantage of everything I've gone over thus far to keep that multiplier timer up, which is key to the routing, and to keep the high multiplier and increase my break rate as fast as possible. So let's get into it. So start off the stage, and I'm going to point blank the corner here. These tanks don't die, and I'm not point blanking these for score, but you'll see that I want to build up my break meter, get a almost a full lock on here, and now I'm going to set up my upgrading lock on technique, and here we go. So I'm upgrading my lock ons, and you're going to see my timer build up, activate break mode, and I'm still going to upgrade my lock ons here. And now I'm going to hold my fire because I want to cancel this laser to get even more timer, and then I get my max multiplier, and there we go. So that's the full upgrading lock-on sequence. Gets me almost the maximum amount of timer that I'm going to now carry through the entire level up through the mid-boss. And so that's what my routing is based on. I route this level to keep that timer up because the longer that timer is up with that max multiplier, the faster my break mode, my break gauge builds, and it allows me to go into break mode a lot faster here. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm destroying these enemies as fast as possible, and now I'm coming up to the next section of lasers here where I'm going to again hold my fire, and then I'm going to activate break, go all the way up to the top, get the double break mode, and you're going to see the timer maxed out because I'm canceling every laser on the screen. This is very satisfying to pull off when I get there. And then now here, these missile ships, the missiles will continuously spawn. If I destroy the first two, then I get 2 bonus ones. And the missiles will keep spawning from these ships, and you'll notice that when I was in break mode, the missiles came out faster. This is because the aerial rank increases whenever I'm in break mode. So whenever I can destroy those missile ships when I'm in break mode, more missiles will come out because the rank of aerial enemies increases. And the way I routed this here, you'll see that I can carry this timer through this pause onto the next section, activate break mode here, and then double brake, and now I can destroy these tanks on the side that are infinitely spawning. So as long as I hang out by the side and I'm careful not to get clipped by a bullet, I can just keep going back and forth and skyrocketing my brake rate here. And so now my brake mode is going to be ending. I'm going to continue riding this section because I need to build brake mode as fast as possible. So I'm going to go up to the top here. There are infinitely spawning tanks on the top left, but I can't hang out there because of this ship here. Here's an example where I don't want to destroy this too fast. If I destroy it too fast, the second one will show up. So I destroy it when it gets on the end here. I hang out on the bottom right, pick off another spot of infinitely spawning tanks, get the double brake mode, and this is what I said earlier, double brake mode is kind of like a full-on screen clear where I can just hang out towards the bottom of the screen, and as long as I pay attention to where the bullets are flying, nothing's going to touch me. So my brake mode ends, I destroy this third Desperado, and I pick off this. This is kind of a pesky mini-boss where once you get the hang of it, you can weave through the blue bullets and destroy the turrets, but learning that is pretty tricky. So here we are on the mid-boss, and the reason why I'm showing the mid-boss is not to say that you need to score this mid-boss. If you're playing this mid-boss for survival, it's fairly easy, but milking the missiles, I'm going to show you the value of the audio cue for brake mode, and you'll see that in a little bit. So here I activate double brake, and I'm going for a maximum lock-on, so I'm dodging these, and I want to get the max lock-on possible, which I do. I point blank these side turrets, and now here is where I start milking these missiles, which is very difficult. And now I'm looking for the audio cue, and as soon as I hear it, I activate brake mode. If I was looking at the brake gauge, I might have missed that activation because of how tight that window is. And I'm just looking around my ship here, dodging these bullets, and I need to destroy one of those side turrets, which I do to keep my timer going. So remember, I'm routing this to keep the timer going, and now this is a very difficult part where I have to weave through these green bullets, and I don't want to damage the mid-boss because I have to have enough energy in my brake gauge for the next part. And so here I'm looking for the audio cue, I hear it, my brake is ready, I'm listening out, okay, I hear it, so I know my double brake is ready, I activate it again, weave to the side, and I slightly dodge. I missed my milk technique there, and I almost had it there. I get hit, and you'll see that my brake rate has been drastically reduced there. So the higher your brake rate is, the more you lose when you get hit, which is a tragedy because I would have ended with about 11,000 brake rate, which would have put me in a great position for the next part of the level. But I just wanted to demonstrate this to you here to show you the technique, so I hope this kind of put everything together and you can see how things go very well when you have a high brake rate and a long timer. So if you found this guide helpful, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed and dropped a like to the channel. I'll be preparing a guide for the boost mode to this video, so arcade boost and range boost. When that's ready, I'll drop a link into this video so you can check it out. In the meantime, take care everyone. I'll see you on the next one.